Julian Cox joins me, partner and head of employment law, London, at the law firm BLM. Good afternoon to you, Julian.
Good afternoon.
Can I ask you what you make of this announcement, the furlough scheme announcement?
Yeah, sure. Well, it's welcome news, as it's more generous in scope than the previously announced job support schemes announced. It will provide some relief to businesses through to March next year to retain staff on the books for the time being, at least. Essentially, it's the same scheme as initially announced in March. The government is contribution to furlough pay is 80%, up to £2,500 a month. But it's not without problems, the original furlough scheme. It does create headaches for employers. They've just been grappling, employers, with the previously announced job support scheme, and that's effectively now been made redundant with the extension of furlough. Now, in terms of the problems with furlough, the burden on employers of furlough, whilst there's no requirement for the employer to contribute to the pay, they're still liable for employers' national insurance and pensions contributions. Paid holiday continues to accrue as well during the furlough period, so there's going to be a price to pay. Employers
for keeping people on,
yeah, that's right. Now, and also they've still got to get the employee's agreement to being furloughed. As has quite rightly been pointed out, a lot of employers decisions have already been made by businesses. Employees have been made redundant already. Now, I don't think that's going to cause any problems in terms of employers facing unfair dismissal claims, because they had to make that decision based on the information available at the time rather than subsequently. But yeah, it's unfortunate for employees that employers have had to do that. But for the hospitality sector in particular, it's not as good news as you might think. And why is that? Well, the reason is because it just relates to basic pay. Now, for a lot of employees working in the hospitality sector, a lot of their pay, up to 40 to 60% of their pay, is made up of something called tronc, tips. There's a tronc master. So they're only getting their basic, which is maybe not going to be enough to survive on. I mean,
because the tips aren't coming in if people aren't in the building, are they? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the hospitality sector has already borne the brunt of all of this. I mean, the government help out
Eat Out to Help
Out scheme. Yeah, that was help. But then, subsequent to that, curfews being imposed. So, and that's had and of course the social distancing involved in restaurants has reduced the number of table covers as well. So they're really taking a massive hit on it.
Let me ask you an example that Theo talked about a moment ago, and I'm sure it will be replicated many times over, or something like it will be replicated many times over. And somebody who contacted the programme who had been on 32 hours a week working in a hotel is now on 16 hours a week. Was when the end of the furlough scheme came, he was asked to take on a new working contract of just 16 hours, presumably because of what that hotel was facing. So now he only gets 80% of 16 hours a week instead of 18% of the. I mean, can he do anything about that in your view?
No, I mean it's contractually agreed, isn't it? So,
but even if it's of no cost to the company. Take him back on those.
It's a decision for the company now to make as to whether or not they review.
But worth him asking.
Yeah, certainly worth asking. And look, I mean, most employers that I deal with, they're trying to do their best for their staff, and they want to retain good staff, and that's one good thing about the extension of the furlough scheme. For the teams that they've built, teams of good people, it gives them the opportunity to retain them. But for how long? Obviously they can. That particular employee can go to the employer, or vice versa. The employer may reach out to the employee and try and change the working arrangements in the circumstances. But then employers are still going to have to look at their plans in the longer term. Are we simply putting off the inevitable? and are still going to have to look at making decisions in the longer term in terms of potentially redundancies again once a furlough scheme is withdrawn.
Thank you, Julian. Good to talk to you. Julian Cox, partner and head of employment at the London law firm BLM.